shoot, my coffee's on the stove.
Oh, snap.
Now
It's
I have
too
to.
late now. You're
I
committed.
know. I'm gonna have to jump up and turn it off though, but I'll wait.
All right. What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Today we have on Robert from BRS. How are you doing today, Robert?
Doing well, thank you, Evan. Devin.
Excellent, excellent. So today we are going to go down the lighting rabbit hole.
Yeah, man. Should be fun.
Should be a good one. Actually, I mean, BRS has been doing a ton of lighting videos recently. I
Yeah.
mean, I just put new lights on my tank. I'm beta testing another light type of thing. So,
I know.
yeah.
I'm thinking about it too, man. Make advancements on this tank build for sure. It's been tough, like with shipping and then all this crazy stuff going on. It's been slow getting stuff, but I'm finally making moves. I've decided like pumps. I've decided on the sump. Lighting still have not decided. So.
What's actually, just before we get into it, what's on your list so far for gear? What are you planning?
Um. Okay. So. Um. Got a trigger system sump. Hopefully the platinum one with the filter roller.
Nice.
Tunzi is I'm gonna use for power heads because I
Mm-hmm.
like Tunzi stream pumps. I think I can get away with the nano streams in that 50 Lagoon. The funny looking ones. And those
Probably.
little things move so much water, and like I just like this profile on them. I think I can put two on the back and get away with it, depending on how I do this rock. Um, Scored some really cool. I scored some old like Pukani and Fiji rock, which I'm
Nice.
gonna go pick up. It's a long drive. I think it's like a 3 hour drive, but this meet a new local reefer here in Tennessee, so that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, he's got some rock that he's getting rid of, and it's live. It's got like mushrooms and some clove polyps, I think, on it. So I'm gonna have to kill it. My plan was to my plan was I'll just chop off whatever's on it and
Mm-hmm.
drop it at the local store, and then I'll dry it out and clean it up. And then the plan is to smash it up and use that Marco mortar and make something. So we'll see. I've never done that before, like, with bits of rock and stuff. I've used mortar and like repaired stuff or made like little connections, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, this thing that Ryan's got going on, where it's just this gnarly custom, piece of like one big rock thing. It's cool, man. It's neat. And so like I envision something really, really neat there. So that's the plan with that.
So gonna smash it up and then reglue back together and make your own
Yeah.
shapes from there.
Right, exactly. And then I think with lighting, I'm going to use two primes because it's a pretty shallow
Mm-hmm.
tank, and those primes are awesome. I just like those
Yep.
lights a lot.
Nice.
Inexpensive. The app is slick, so do that. And then yeah, hopefully, I'm not really sure about what's going to go in the sump yet. We'll find out.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
that'll
going
be
to keep
pretty.
going. The filter roller is going to make it easy filtration wise, so it like takes everything out of the tank.
Oh,
So just
love
need a little,
filter rollers.
yeah, a little skimmer, and ideally I'll put auto water change on it, and we'll call it a day, man. I don't really have room for like a big mixing station, so I think I'm gonna do something similar to what you got going on, where
Mm-hmm.
just some tight little boxes next to the tank, have a freshwater and a saltwater one, and call it a day, man. I
Beauty.
can run lines. I can run quarter-inch lines pretty easily through the ceiling, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll run a drain line, I'll run a feed line. I'll put the RLDI over by wash and dryer, just run the line. It's got to go across the house, but it's pretty easy to get it through like the attic. So
Nice. That's handy.
we're getting there. I mean, I've got plans now, so it's just a matter of getting the stuff in my possession and then actually doing it, and producing content while you're doing all this kind of slows stuff down. So
I feel you.
it'll be fine though. I mean, summer project, like I'll take it slow, kind of do one thing at a time, and publish stuff. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited for it. It's been a long time since I've like built a tank for myself or like in my own home. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
always been like had some prerogative, whether it be for work or have to do it real quick, like a transfer. So excited to kind of do that. Take my own time, do what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Probably gonna put a lot of brown coral in it, which people are gonna be bummed about, but so what? It's my
Just,
tank.
just give it some love, color it up.
Yeah, I mean I like clams and I like recordias, so you might see those
Love
in there, which
clams.
add some
Yep.
color. But it'll be gorgonians, softies, some like really obscure fish probably. I'll freak out and find something really weird. So
Nice. That'll be
yeah,
cool.
yeah, we're getting there.
Excellent. I like it, buddy. You got a plan. It's coming together.
Yeah.
Uh, so, are you gonna do videos or kind of film your journey, or is it gonna
Most of them will
be
be on social, so I'll
okay?
do a lot in Asperger's TV. I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
on the fence about doing a build thread right now. It kind of depends on how much time I got.
Mm-hmm.
So between moderating the group, other stuff for BRS, and then running the social media channel there, I just have to bounce it out. We'll see how much time I got. So yeah, that's the plan. I mean, there'll be videos I'll put on Facebook, but it'll all be straight social.
Yep. No, nice. That'll be good. Yeah, I'm
Yep.
excited for it. I'm
Hmm.
happy you're finally getting a tank again. I know it's been a
Oh,
while.
dude, I'll be a much happier man this time next year for sure.
Yep.
I'll be fulfilled. I'm like 99% there. So.
That's good. I find the tank is tied to your mood too. Like when your tank looks good, you're just like your day's
Oh,
better.
totally, dude.
Yeah.
It's so bad. I was just talking to Adam and the guys at BRS because they're slowly going back to the office up there, and the office tanks, and I was like, man, if I had to walk into a tank, like I just remember like days that I would walk into stuff not, looking its best, and
Hmm.
I would be off the entire day. And it's the same, when your tank's at home. Like, all I want to do, if I come home and something's wrong with the tank, it's like, sorry, kids, we're not gonna eat dinner until this fish tank's fixed, or whatever it is. Like,
You'll be hungry. Priorities.
yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
All right. So today's topic is more around lighting and kind of different aspects of it. I know a lot of people always want to know, what light schedule to use. I see that one pop up
Oh my gosh.
constantly.
Yeah, I mean, tons of questions in Asperger's TV about lighting. Now with LEDs, it's mostly about like how do I set it, how long do I run it. So there's kind of like
Hmm.
common questions there. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I think that BRS TV has been putting out some really really cool lighting videos, and so that's kind of why I bled into this topic or wanted to talk about this because I think there's some really cool things that have been coming out in those videos and they're just not talked about enough. That really irks me because I think they're super beneficial.
Hmm.
And if people could sort of grasp these concepts, it would make lighting far less more intimidating for sure.
One
And go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say one actually thing that we should dig into a little bit. I don't know if you dug in much into DLI or the kind of logic
The
around
like
that.
how long you run your lights, like daily light integral,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Um, no, okay. So all I have is what I've done. So I guess it's all anecdotal in that sense that I've run lights for 12 hours. I've run them for 8 hours, and I've ran them. Right now I stick with about 9 an hour ramp up and down. So
Hmm.
that's kind of been where I've been at, I guess, like the last 5 years. Way back in the beginning, when I was running, so I was running a metal halide and T5s, like I did a 12-hour schedule, but the metal halide was only on for like 6 hours.
Yeah.
So I did the T5s for, I guess what is that? 3 hours, three
Hmm.
hours each. Yeah. So um, that was an interesting one, but I didn't really see. It just got hot. That's the only thing. The water just got hot, so I didn't really see much of a difference. But I was new too, man. So like all the other stuff wasn't really in line quite yet at the
Hmm.
time. So yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got around that one.
Yeah.
I mean, we know how long the sun's up over the reef, and it varies. So
Well, and it
yeah,
ramps up through the day too, right? You got your peak period and.
yeah, that's the thing that I think is more is like a okay. So if you look at your graph, and most of
Hmm.
them will come up and then just sort of plateau and then come down.
Hmm.
And the ones like the bell curves are the ones that sort of interest me. And I've done it, I've done it, but I've not really stuck with it long enough because of just, comfort in what's familiar. Um, but yeah, maybe, maybe with this new setup, I'll try something like that because that is an
You
interesting
good?
one where because it's far more natural, and I've seen some. I think we talked about this last time around. I've seen some schedules from some prominent reefers,
Hmm.
and they run some crazy stuff. And the up and down on the peak
Yeah,
period, where it's like up and down. I'm
that's
not sure
what
what that's all about,
David
but I've seen
Saxby
it.
does. He has his little
Yeah, there
peaks
you
up
go.
and down constantly.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about.
Well, okay, so some of the lights simulate cloud cover. That might just be a manual way of doing it. Like, it's more intense and it's a little subtler, then it's more intense and subtler.
Hmm.
I mean, mine's not this like lovely bell curve. I kind of do my schedule like it ramps up and then it is, it's normal schedule. Then I usually have about 4 hours of a more intense period
Hmm.
just to kind of get a little more juice and hopefully bring a little more colors of the coral. That's kind of what I've been doing the last few years, which for me it's been working well. So I like on my with the G5s I was for my tank, I tried to do something similar. I took the AB plus and then I made my little 4 hour little plateau
What
of
did
like
you
more
change about the
intense.
AB plus?
Um, I basically just upped the whites in the other color channels for that 4 hour period. Just getting a little more juice out of it, more or
Right,
less what I'm doing.
just the intensity. Yeah,
Yeah, and I kind of like the crispy white look too in a way. So that's
yeah,
my like bright whitey kind of look the other day.
yeah. I'm into that. So like, I kind of do like with a color. Kind of do a gradual. I mean, intensity goes with it, but I really like a gradual from blue to white, and then at the
Hmm.
peak period, it's pretty white.
Yeah.
I really stop just before it gets yellow, I guess.
Hmm.
It's kind of where it's at. But I like to see like the dynamic in the tank. It's like cool to look at the same coral and it have look a little different, but big and fluffy in the middle of the day, and then just
Hmm.
kind of smaller and bright towards evening. So
Every time you look at it, it looks different, which is good.
yeah, it's kind of neat.
So just to quickly touch on the whole DLI one, because I know not a lot of people really know that kind of concept, I guess. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's how
yeah,
long you run your lights.
basically.
Yeah.
So at a certain par. So it's basically par times time is more or less the quick and dirty of it. So if you could have your lights on at 50 par for 12 hours, or you could have it at 100 par for 6 hours and still give the same amount of like light energy to that coral. Now, at the end of the day, you're still getting X number of photons to it. Now, some corals will actually have a different growth pattern based on different lighting. So I know certain ones like a Montipora with like a lower par, longer duration will more like go out like this, probably so it gets more light, right? Where if it's really high par, it will more spiral upwards. So some corals care and some don't. But it gives you a bit of a way to play with it.
I'm
And
sure it matters, just
mm-hmm,
like the way it shows shows how it matters. Is probably different, or if it does show it at all.
mm-hmm,
You look at like zoanthids. You can get different colors and speckles out of them, and different things like that, with just changing lighting. So,
mm-hmm.
and that's from what I understand is always with spectrum, but I'm sure DLI has something to do with it.
Yep. Well, okay. Then spectrum's a whole another rabbit hole, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
I mean, part of it's personal taste, part of it is with the coral. And can you guys explain UV settings? Yeah, we'll go in UV. I'll add the list. Um,
So yeah, with color, it's interesting, and this is the one that super grabbed my attention. I think Ryan put it out. I think he called it how to master coloration is what it was. But it was real cool. What he did was he put a radion over the tank, and then he ramped up each individual LED one at a time.
mm-hmm,
And you were looking at the tank, and you could see how the corals rendered color-wise under each of those spectrums. And then
mm-hmm,
when you put them together, it makes a ton of sense as how your tank collectively gets this look. Um, and it was really interesting to me when you start playing with the weird colors like UV,
mm-hmm,
red, and green, and how they play a role. To me, the way that those corals play a role, or the way that those colors play a role in the way that your coral looks, is so much more dramatic than just blue,
mm-hmm.
or like blue and white. Like yeah, those, they obviously make the blue makes the coral look great, but it's not going to look its best until you add some of these supplementary colors in there, and so that's why they exist. That's why they're there,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to have full spectrum light.
You do.
So it
One.
was just interesting to me that by looking at that, seeing that, it really made it. You can grasp onto that concept a lot easier. When you look at a spectral plot, it's like, oh, okay, that's the colors of the rainbow. That's great, but what does it mean for my tank? And so
Mm-hmm,
it was a good way to sort of like connect the dots.
mm-hmm. Yeah, like a lot of the budget lights are red and white and maybe a couple random LED diodes. But what you need to consider is the colors you see are the colors that are reflected back at you, right? Like trees are green because that's what's reflected back at us, like a lot of the stuff. Now, if you're not putting that color towards the coral, it can't reflect it back at you,
Oh,
right?
there you go. Yeah.
To an extent. I mean, not 100%, but so adding these extra different colors of LEDs into the mix are going to give you better color rendition because you have more options of which light is reflecting back towards your eyes and
There
like
you go.
highlighting or enhancing certain colors.
Yeah, it's neat. And it was just
Mm-hmm.
cool to finally see it. It's like you knew it, or I guess like the concept was there, but it was neat to kind of see it one at a time and then explain together collectively.
Mm-hmm.
It's neat.
So a couple questions that did pop up so far. One of them, can you guys explain the UV settings? So there is a couple different like UVs
Yeah,
depending on which color it is. Like some are really just purple, some are more true UV, somewhere in the middle.
yeah.
But
UV is really low spectrum
mm-hmm,
or nanometer range. So, like a true UV is UVA, UVB, and UVC.
yeah,
And I think that goes lower and lower on the
mm-hmm,
nanometer scale. So what you're seeing in your LED lights really isn't like a true UV. I think it's at the very top range.
yeah,
So what's your 420 nanometers like the purple, and then I
mm-hmm,
think 380 is
yeah,
like the lowest we've ever seen on an
mm-hmm,
LED, if that. And true UV is below that. I think it's like 200 to 280s like UVA, and all the way up. I'd have to look it up
Yeah.
to give you the numbers, but that's essentially how it goes. And you're not really seeing like a true UV, like what that
Hmm.
burns you in the sun or something.
No, it's true. And so some lights are closer to true UV. I mean, they do help with some of the fluorescence. Some people kind of theorize that it helps with like the coral's pigment and stuff a little bit. That could be because maybe it's trying to use that zooxanthellae as like a sunblock to protect from it, or maybe it's reflecting it back. That one I'm not 100% sure. Like Dana Riddle has some really good talks around lighting. If you guys haven't watched those ones and want to geek out on it, one
That's a
of
good
the
one.
yeah, one of them was too. The other point of it with like your photo period, his was on about like the max saturation of a coral, where it can actually like slow down growth and it will just kind of like shut down after a little bit once it's hit its kind of max saturation for the day.
Yeah, from I've always been told anyway, and I don't
Hmm.
necessarily, okay, but they can only photosynthesize so much in a day.
Yeah.
It's not like like what seems like Kato does, where the more you give it, it'll grow all day long.
Hmm.
Um, so I when it comes to the intensity and the lighting, like I always think I'm like, okay, so I've got pretty good growth, and I'm not going to get much more for my 9 hours at this intensity or this peak par. I mean, what's the point in going longer?
Hmm. That's true. There's an interesting one from Savage Reefer because there's two very different schools of thought on this one.
All right,
Don't you think all the options gets confusing?
with what?
Just
Like the
LEDs
colors
and
or the
colors.
just
Yeah.
LED lights? Well, I mean, options are fun when it comes to
Hmm.
getting lights, but the colors, yeah, of course it gets confusing. So we'll get into that with tuning Spectrum, but I mean
Hmm.
that's the evolution, which is really really cool. We're seeing it now. Kessel figured it out first, I think.
Hmm.
Reef LED
See,
has it.
I've always felt robbed with Kessel because I'm like, I want my control, and you're just like blue or whiter. I'm like, I want my
Yeah,
control. But
it
some
is
people like
cool.
that. So I,
Yeah, it's cool. But
mm-hmm.
you think way back in the day. So I'm thinking back, like the first LED light I ever saw was that PFO thing, big monster box that you couldn't even lift up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it didn't really look that great. It was terrible. And then you kind of see this evolution, and then the Radeon hits, and it's like, whoa, you get this cool color control.
Mm-hmm.
But then everybody's killing their coral, and it was all about acclimation at that time. Well, you got to turn it way down and slowly acclimate it over, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people would have success. But I think at that time it was people just blasting the wrong colors or insufficient spectrums.
Well, the early days, it was like the par wars, right? All they wanted is like high par, high par. Who can get the most par, right?
Well,
Like that's what
this is
people
even
wanted.
before that. This is like the
Yeah.
first, like the Gen 1 Radeon, and then
Yeah. Okay.
like when PAR became a thing on the scene. I mean, that was when there was competition, so there's like additional light fixtures at that point in time. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, it was the PAR wars, which who could do the brightest. And then as LED technology, freaking, it seemed like it advanced like super quick. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
always around, but we didn't see these gnarly high wattage LEDs. But then it just seemed like the whole world got turned on to LEDs, from industrial lighting to household lighting to fish tank lighting.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of seemed like it all just jumped on the scene at the same time, and
Yeah.
advanced really quick too at that.
It did. It's surprisingly you still see a good chunk of T5s and stuff out there. Not many halides anymore, but
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, why do you think that's the case?
well, halides, for instance, like I mean, they're proven they work well. I know a couple of people using them, but not very many.
Yep.
I mean, they're power hogs. They produce a lot of heat. Depending where you live in the world, a lot of extra heat may be an issue for you. So I think that's a good chunk of it. I
Power's
know.
expensive.
Oh yes, yes it is.
Yeah,
Sucks a
it's
lot of
becoming a
juice.
thing. Yeah. I was more directed at T5s though. So
Hmm.
T5s, I mean, it's proven light technology. It works well. It makes beautiful corals.
Hmm.
But so does LED.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of curious. Like, there's a lot of people that, oh, I got rid of my LEDs and went back to T5s. And to me, there's still a big hassle there. Like LED, like I think about it and I just kind of ask myself, like, man, it's such less of a hassle to run LEDs, and why wouldn't you? And so I just have to think to myself, what failed in their experience,
Hmm.
um, where they didn't get similar, if not equal or better performance with an LED? Was it the
Well,
LED they bought or the way they used it?
could be both.
Yeah.
And now I think the newer LEDs have some pretty crazy spread on them. A couple years back, most of the LEDs were more cone shaped downwards. So the T5 always had that like better spread thing, and I think
Yeah.
that gap's getting smaller and smaller with a lot of the new LEDs. You know, like the Orvitex and the Philips and the Radeons and all these. Like,
Yeah.
they're getting pretty darn close to like a blanket light, which really starts to question more now if you even need T5s anymore. Like, because
Yeah.
some people would use it just as a fill light to kind of bounce in and reduce shadows in certain areas, where now you can do that with a lot of LEDs out the box, and you don't have to worry about replacing bulbs and all that other jazz.
Yeah. For me, originally it was like color. Like I always loved the color you could get under a T5.
Mm-hmm.
But now that LEDs are producing some pretty gnarly colors, and like you said, the blanket, um, you know, Randy's putting out this stuff about the spacing and like how high you go with it and spread and whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's always been there. It just hasn't been talked about enough and like tested enough because I mean you can see, or as we all see, like that definitely fixes it, and then you put a good lens on it, and I think you can get the same performance, if not very, very similar. And then like okay, so let's define like a hotspot. Hotspots where we have like
Yep.
super high par, and then you have a low par next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I'm okay with it, I
That
don't
could
know,
be intentional,
10%.
right? Maybe you
Yeah, like a
position your
10.
lights over your little acro islands.
Yeah, yeah. Like I'm okay with a 10% hotspot, but like a
Mm-hmm.
50% hotspot where it's just double,
Mm-hmm.
like that's no fun, and that's gonna hurt things. Um, yeah. So at the end of the day, I guess I'm just what my point is like how much does it matter? And like you said, at what point do are T5s obsolete? I think we're almost there.
Yeah. Well, the other question is too: Are they how long will they keep producing the bulbs for? I mean, look at house lights. Like there used to be
Yeah.
T5s and like those little boxes and like kitchens and stuff everywhere. Now it's all LEDs. Like a lot of these bulbs, I think, are going to be slowly with the mercuries and all the
I
stuff
think
they
we're
put
the
in them.
only ones that make T5s anymore. I mean, you hardly see like any of that stuff at Home Depot anymore. It's all LED.
Yep.
And like if you had to go get a fluorescent tube, like some weird, like the round ones or some weird like PC bulb with 4 pins, like good luck, man. You're not gonna find it.
Yeah.
You got,
More,
you have to order it online.
more and more slim pickings. So
Hmm.
I think eventually, just for the metals and gases, whatever they use in them, like I think it's just eventually going to fade away on us. But there's diehards;
Yeah.
they'll be around for a while.
Well, and then in LEDs they use precious metals inside LEDs too, right?
Good
Isn't that
question.
what it is? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that.
Probably a lot
Last
less of
time I
it
went.
though.
Oh
But
yeah, far less. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. But
Now,
go ahead.
yeah, it's true. Um, so I do think one day, I mean, everyone might just be pushed over to LEDs eventually. So a few minutes ago, someone in the chat mentioned
Mhm.
like kind of the difference of hybrids, like the hybrid lights and the
Yep.
difference. And I've rocked a hybrid for a while just because I was curious to try it and see if there's a difference. And I mean, you do get a little bit of different colors in some corals under the T5s versus LEDs or at the hybrid, but then again, it's not like there's no clear winner because like one coral maybe looks a little bit better under it and one looks better under LEDs. So it's not.
Yeah. So like I like to dive in the ocean, and so the shimmer from the sunlight is super cool to
Mm-hmm.
me, and I like
Yep.
to see that in a fish tank. Probably why I like Kessel. But I like to see it like in the and not the disco effect. I mean, I like to see like a white shimmer. But it's neat to see that sort of like sparkling going
Mm-hmm.
on. So I like it. Some people it drives them nuts, but um, I don't know. To each their own. It's subjective.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, no, like hybrid was good. I mean, I'm trying the Philips Coral Carrot one now, so I popped my T5 off, but I had the hybrid for the last 6, 7 months, just 8 months, whatever it was, just to try it.
Yeah.
Yep,
I
good to
just,
know.
what I was getting at earlier with the bulb is the hassle of it is the bulb change.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, like to me, like having to do that once a year, like that's obnoxious. And especially when I can have an LED that I don't, I literally set it the day I get it,
Mm-hmm.
program it on my phone for that matter, and like never have to touch it again.
Yep.
Um, to me, that's just a huge benefit. You don't have to worry about heat. Heat was crazy gnarly. Like heat is almost obsolete these days. You have DC pumps and you know
Mm-hmm.
the LED bulbs. Like heat is not a thing anymore.
You
Like
got
you
to
have
buy
to.
more. You got to buy more heaters now to keep your tank warm.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Everybody's focused on keeping their tanks warm. Yeah, so it's to me, I love it. I think it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like a hybrid, but then at the same time, I think using LEDs in the right way, you can certainly get there. And it's just about how high you mount them
Yep.
or that you space them. And
Cool.
quality. The
I
LED matters. The fixture matters for sure.
I have a question for you. So, in a lot of like Randy's video where he does like his optimal spacing from the edges of the tank and all that.
It's an interesting one. Yeah, go.
Now, on your tank, would you space them according to the optimal, or would you just center them so it looks good even?
So okay, so let's just you're talking about like okay. So
Yeah.
like I noticed we'll talk about your tank because you've got four
Mm-hmm.
up there, right? The
Yep.
XR15s. And I noticed you have them pretty much centered on all the way around, right?
It would bug me if they weren't centered.
Yeah. So I think this is super interesting, and
Mhm.
I didn't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing with these pendant lights is basically, your mind wants you to perfectly center your pendants. So
Mm-hmm.
say you've got three or four lights, you want them in the perfectly center front to back, but then you
Mm-hmm.
also want them evenly spaced across the whole tank because
Mm-hmm.
logic will tell you that that gives you the, equal spread. But it doesn't. What happens is this light bounces off the walls of the aquarium inside and bounces
Mm-hmm.
back. And so now you get, these weird spikes on the sides. And so what we're finding or what Randy's finding, is as you move those lights away, so your outer lights are going to be closer to the edges, and your center light will be dead center, and you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get a far more even spread that way. But then it just, drives the part of you that wants to see it even crazy is what Devin's
It's
saying is
true.
like looking at your tank with the lights all funny looking like that. Would it drive you nuts? I think if I had
Yes.
three and they were evenly spaced, like one on each side, it would be all right,
And one in the
Uh,
middle.
yeah, and one in the direct middle.
Yeah.
I think what would drive me crazy is yeah, but see, it wouldn't work. Yeah, like to have it lopsided. So there's still some symmetry there
Mm-hmm.
when is because at least the gap between the middle and the outside ones are the same. I
Mm-hmm.
would be okay with that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, for as long as I can remember, as long as I've been using LEDs, man, that's how we mounted them. So
Yep.
that's an interesting one for sure. And I'm curious as to how many people are catching on to that. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people seem to be um, focused on the mounting height, which is important, because that gives you, your spread.
Mm-hmm.
But that one for me was always okay. We'll start about 6 inches, raise it up until you see the light bleed over the sides, and that's where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the fixture spacing is one that hasn't been talked about enough, I think. And it's cool that Randy's publishing that data and putting it out in a sense where we really have proof that it it gives you a far better,
Mm-hmm.
more even spread when you do it that way, for sure.
Which is surprising too. Like, I mean, the glass reflects a surprise amount of light. Like, if it's a black
Yeah,
wall, you lose a bunch. But if there's nothing on it, it's just clear. It bounces a ton of light. It's crazy.
yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then uh, the like mounting them perpendicular, I guess, and it only really applies to like the radions and the hydros where they have like that sort of
The rectangular
configuration.
shape.
Yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
rectangle shape. Um, yeah, that's an interesting one. You know, I don't think I've ever done it,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd definitely be curious to see like, say you have, it's 24, or let's just say, what's that, a 120 gallon, so 48
Mm-hmm.
inch, 24 by 24.
Yep.
Would you get a better, more even spread by doing it that way? Like, say you had two, I guess not two, it would be four. Yeah, I guess you have to put them closer together. You have to get four of them, but you're going to get a better spread front to back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
I,
I don't know, I want to see that. Or
I,
like the
I,
angles.
I
Can you put
have.
them on angles?
Yeah, I think that's just for looks. But hey, you never know. Now, the XR15s is a very slight rectangle in the bottom, not huge, and I debated if I turn if there's much of a difference.
But yeah, but isn't
So
the
subtle.
lens itself around like a perfect sphere?
Yeah,
Yeah, so the
it'd
light's
be
coming
subtle.
out.
It'd be very
Yeah,
subtle.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, I think the lens shape is a sphere, so it would be the same no matter which way you turned it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's like physically like an inch wider on one side, but
So
yeah,
tell
it
us
is
about
so close.
your light. You got new lights. So what'd you do? Before you had Gen 4s and Gen 5s. Now
I
you
had
got
a,
all Gen 5s, right?
I had a special blend. I had
What?
a
Oh,
Gen
a
5
special
Pro,
blend.
a Gen 5 Blue, and two Gen 4s.
Special blend. Yeah, that reminds me, man. There was this product called Special. It was by Microblift. I loved it, man. It was like this bacteria product.
Yeah,
And I'm sure it's still around. It was a purple bottle. Microblift is the company. And man, they made this bacteria stuff that was awesome. It would make your tank crystal clear. It was
nice.
like a Microbacter 7, but it was super stinky too. Yeah.
Perfect.
All
Clear
right,
and
sorry.
stinky.
Sorry for the sidetrack there. It's been a long time since I've seen that stuff, but I used to love it.
Okay, special blend LEDs. What were you asking?
Oh yeah, your special blend. So what do you have on the tank prior, and then what do you have now?
Okay, so prior I had two Gen 4s, one Gen 5 Pro, and one Gen 5 Blue. And now I have all Gen 5 Pros.
So staring at it, did you really see a monster difference or no
Okay,
between
so
the lights?
I had the two Gen 5s in the middle because I know they had better spread.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I matched all the light, so you couldn't really tell the difference between it. Like, I basically matched the same
You match them
colors.
visually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
visually.
Yeah.
So it worked better for me. Now, the biggest thing between, say, now I had Gen 4s with diffusers, so the diffusers did a pretty good job of blending and make it pretty even.
Right.
The biggest thing with like the 4s to the 5s is better blending and just you get more spread and better, more even par would be the biggest things. And you get a
Right.
couple
Right.
extra colors, so you get that. So the Gen 3s, however, they were definitely more of like the cone of light, where the Gen 4 with
You can like
diffuser
see
was
the hard
pretty
line
good.
of light that comes
Yeah.
through. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was still a nice upgrade. It wasn't like night and day upgrade, but it was still a pretty decent upgrade. Like a Gen 3 to a 5 would be a huge upgrade.
Yeah.
Fours are already pretty awesome, so it wasn't massive, but like I think in my video I actually did, but I literally just ran the par meter across the tank, like just held it and walked across the whole tank at 6 feet, and the par was within like 20 or 30 par, just like the whole thing. Like it's
Wow.
amazing how even they are and how
Yeah, it's neat. And there's
that.
diffusers on all of them, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're coming with the diffuser accessory. So if you wanted to diffuse it further and blend
Right.
it further, you could even do that. But
Yeah, but it's pretty good without them.
I don't think you need it. Like I have
Yeah.
from Gen 4s with diffusers to Gen 5 without. Like I'll probably still try one because I'm curious and want to know the difference.
Because yeah.
But I don't think you need it though. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see.
I'd like to see the what Randy's doing with these like par grids and the blending test. I'd like to see that grid
Hmm.
before and after. You know
Yeah.
the diffuser. It'd be interesting for sure.
No, exactly. A couple minutes ago in the chat, someone too was asking about LED hybrid, something you would consider. So, would I consider it? Yes, because I've tried it. However, I like minimalistic on my tank. I don't like a ton of stuff hanging on top of it. I like minimalistic, very light, not super heavy stuff above it. So, like on my main display, the Gen 5 Pros are that big, and I feel like they give me just as good a spread as a T5 would, right?
Yeah, that's where I'm at with this prime, man. I
Yeah.
just like want a tiny light that puts out a bunch and it's easy. Like easy's huge to me, so it's like, yeah, I would do it if I had to, but if I could get something that's giving me just just as equal, or almost as good of spread and output, like I will choose that route to not have to deal with the bulbs and the bulky fixture,
Hmm.
the wires. Wires probably drive me nuts, and the timers. Timers, Who uses timer? What's a timer? I don't think my kids are even gonna know what a timer is.
Smart plug.
Yeah, smart plug, exactly.
Hmm.
Um,
My buddy's whole tank's all smart plugs, just like his ghetto
Does
controller.
that?
It works.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it reliable enough for him? Because I've had a couple of those that like just stopped working, and not they weren't in my fish tank; they're in my
Hmm.
house. But, um, and I guess it was early on in the smart plug days. But yeah, I'm curious
Hmm.
about that because I've thought about that quite a few times.
He actually, okay, so he seems really happy with it. So one of these
Huh.
days, I'm gonna go do a video or a live stream at his place.
Yeah,
Because he literally calls me like every day with like reefing questions. So he's
I
like,
should
"Oh,
love
I'm
that.
thinking about this." He's like, "What about this?" I'm like, "Yes, no, okay, this."
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do a stream with him because he asked me all the stuff that I don't think of, right? Because I've done it for so long. So it's just like
Oh, right.
you already know it and you don't even consider. He's like, "But what about this? I don't know. I'm a new reefer." I'm like,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so I think it'll be really good video or stream, whatever we do. But I
Yeah,
think
for
it'll
sure, for sure. Yeah.
be interesting.
So so far it's fairly reliable for him. He's
Yeah.
not like had any major faux pas because of it.
Yeah, no, he's been happy. It's been working well.
That's good. That's awesome.
Yep. Okay, here's a good question. Popped up a little while ago from Gary.
Alright.
Can you clear up the white versus blue for growth or color pop? So
Uh,
I'll explain.
yeah, you go ahead.
So I know a lot of really old reefers which would use lower spectrum or lower Kelvin,
Kelvin, yeah.
8,000, 10,000 K, 5,000 K, whatever, really warm light because supposedly corals will grow faster under it. But they were usually more brown and not as colorful. And then you go
Yeah.
to like the blues and try and come up that way. Now, my theory on this one is white light is all colors. So by using those warmer spectrums, you're giving it more of a full spectrum, where a blue, you're only giving it the blue. So I think that extra light for the full spectrums likely could have possibly attributed to better growth that way. That's kind of my theory. The blue, I think, is more of like some of like the UVs and the blues and all those. It has something to do with the Susan Selly that helps it build those color
Yeah,
pigmentations as like a sunblock in a way almost. And
Yeah,
this is my theory.
naturally the light, cool colors absorb blast. So The
Mm-hmm.
cool colors of the spectrum are going to be what the corals, and like red light is filtered out of sunlight super quick, like I
Mm-hmm.
think within 5 feet or something, as the
Yeah.
sun travels through the ocean. So the only coral, like you got your acros and the reef crest
Mm-hmm.
that like come out of water sometimes, like those are the ones that actually see the white light. So I think it's more about the coral you're keeping. Like a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
corals come from a huge range of depths. You've got like 5 feet to let's just say 100 feet at max, right?
Mm-hmm.
That light spectrum is completely different from here to here, and so I would be interested to pay more attention to where these corals reside or like where they're collected from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, there's hard lines where it's like this coral does not exist at any depth above 20 feet and doesn't exist at depths below 40 feet.
Yeah.
Well, if that range has a specific spectrum of light, yeah, it might live, but it's not going to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would be more interested in testing it that way in terms of like, okay, all these corals at 40 foot, what is the spectrum? All right, let's watch the spectrum and see like where do all the LPS go? Like where do euphyllias, where do the acans do? And
Mm-hmm.
then, change that across the board and see it. Uh, with metal halides, there was a lot. That's where I learned to reef under a metal halide, and I learned about light spectrum and this kind of stuff. And I think it would, yeah. So I think it's the output that you're getting, like the PAR values you're getting were kind of the same across the board. And it was just sort of like you said, the way that the Zoox and Zelly react to it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that they're getting better growth. I mean, it could have been, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that a lot of guys documented it and said it happened, but I think it's more of a function of the way that the Zoox and Zelly is acting, or like where it's putting its energy,
Mm-hmm.
and giving it back to the coral or not. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, with LED lights, I mean, we know there's science that we know the spectrums that a coral benefits from and uses
Mm-hmm.
in the certain
But,
it's
but
what's
but here
chlorophyll. Go ahead.
but do we know all the spectrums? Like, is a full spectrum giving it a little more of the ones that might be advantageous that we don't 100% know for sure?
Sure, yeah. No, I suppose you're right in that sense, yeah. And like, I guess, yeah, there could be some truth there. Uh, However, we do know,
Mm-hmm.
like when it comes to the science of photosynthesis and the pigments that are in a coral, like we know the spectrums that they use the best, and so that's
Yeah.
where we're coming from when you say, uh, it's all about blue light, or it's out, between the 400 and 500 spectrum range. Like that's the spectrum that you want, but you want as broad as you can get in between those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about a skinny peak. It's like, oh well, I got blue, so I'm good. It's about as much of those blue spectrums. Like each nanometer, right, is a different
Mm-hmm.
spectrum. Like, so what do you've got between four? That's 100 different ones. Well, I don't have
Yep.
100 sliders. I got 5 sliders. I got 6 sliders. So
So that's exactly why I think there could be some validity to the white part,
mhm,
because white is all colors. It has a very wide spectrum, and I
sure,
think it might just be filling gaps that maybe your single color of blue in an LED may not be hitting. That's my theory. I don't know if I'm right, but that's my theory.
that's a pretty solid one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been said that you need full spectrum light. You know, it's the same with plants. Like you can't have photosynthesis without a full spectrum light. So you need the whole thing.
Hmm.
It's just where you peak it
Yeah.
is what's gonna promote better growth or not. Just like we see
Hmm.
in refugiums. You've got the pink and the purple, or the pink and the
Yeah.
blue, or blue and red, I guess, would make
Yeah.
purple. Yeah, I mean
Okay.
it's night and day that it grows faster.
Okay, so here's a good one for you. Who just asked that one? K-Dub corals. I keep red and green spectrums to a minimum. Should I be adding these in, to what extent? So a lot of people are afraid of the green and red because they think it's going to promote algae and other stuff in the tank. What's your experience first on this one?
I never pump it up over like 50.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's like 20, 30. I just kind of like, so I've got my blues up, I got my whites in, and then what I do is I just look at like my brightest coral or my coolest coral, and I just kind of mess with it until I like the way it
Mm-hmm.
looks.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's all I ever do. I mean, I don't think about it beyond that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something we should talk about for guys that are tuning LEDs or never had them. Like the approach that you should take with it, just across the board. We talk about renting PAR meters, and BRS is doing all these awesome tests and giving
Mm-hmm.
us. So it's everybody that's using LEDs is coming out of the woodworks like, well, shoot, you guys didn't do a video on my light. When are you gonna do my light? Because I need to know the best way to do it.
Yep.
Um, which, okay, I'll give you that. I mean, we're hitting really good information. You're backing it with science and data, so there's that. However, if you put these all back, like there is a collective approach to this, and there's
Mhm.
congruencies between the way that they're setting the lights, they're mounting the lights. So we'll talk about what I'm inferring from it, and then maybe for what you
Mhm.
infer from it too. So I kind of
Okay.
forgot the question.
All right. So it was around the red and green
Oh
LEDs.
yeah, red and green. So yeah, I just slide it up to basically the way that the
Okay. So
coral looks the best.
yeah, that's fair. So kind of what we mentioned touched on earlier is by using those colors, it reflects the color back at you more, right? So by having like I know with the pros, the red and the green, like my acans will pop more, like my green corals will pop more, the anthias will pop more, right? Because all these colors make them go better. Now I've never experienced any algae issues running these colors. Currently, I think like my main kind of overall period they're around 24-25%, and then my 4 or so hours in the day I round up to like close to 50, 40 or 50%. But I've never really had any algae issues running those colors. I personally never worried about it.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of about water and other factors like bacterial balance and things. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
we're figuring out some pretty there's some pretty solid proof between like bacterial activity and balance and
Mm-hmm.
certain algae, cyanobacteria, dinoflagellates, that kind of thing. I didn't realize
Mm-hmm.
that I read this today. Zooxanthellae is a dinoflagellate.
Yep.
Didn't know that.
I know,
You
right?
think
It's
after
just
reading
weird,
about
eh?
coral all this whole time. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I just think there's other factors at play there
Mm-hmm.
and to be scared. I mean, algae grows under like any light. Like
It's
you
true. It
don't need a
doesn't
lot
care.
of light, and like I think there's just other factors that will instigate that growth. I don't think it's having
Mm-hmm.
10% more red or
Yeah.
whatever. I do want to ask this though. So like
Mm-hmm.
the blue, like the radion blues, all spectrums at 100% gives you AB plus. So
Yep.
that's,
Full
I mean,
power AB plus.
yeah, red and green across the board. There's just the power is negotiated
Yeah.
to be correct within that. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was something I wasn't clear on because I've always tell people don't go over 50 with the red and the green or the red and the greens. But I should probably change that to say adjust the red and green to where you're the same thing I say about the whites
Mm-hmm.
is adjust it to where you like it,
Yep. No,
you
I
know.
agree.
And like red's gonna bring out your warm colors. Your green kind of does some weird stuff with like
Green makes it brighter to your eye almost too,
yeah.
which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Personally, all the reds and greens and colors, I just keep them all roughly level and just ramp them up or down depending on the time of day, and works. Um, so on that point about people messing with the colors, I
Sure.
think that with a lot of people that went in the early days of LEDs would had issues. I think a lot of that is attributed to them messing with the sliders and messing with their LEDs too often.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's okay, so there's that. That is very, very true.
mhm.
We'll just say it right now because it'll probably sound like we're promoting something you shouldn't be doing, but you set your lights and you forget it and you will be a lot better off. Even if
Mhm.
it's not ideal, they will survive, they will photosynthesize, and they will be okay. It's not going to kill them.
Mhm.
Um, and what kills them and pisses them off is constantly, oh, it's they're not looking good today. I better give it some more blue. They're not looking
Yeah.
as good as last week. I better give it some more white. That makes them upset, and you will like just slowly do one of these downhill spirals if you keep doing it and constantly thinking it's your lighting.
Mhm.
I mean, you're better off, like Devin said, put them all at 100%, put it at 50% power and call it a day. Um,
Mhm.
but there's an easy approach to it. So,
Yeah. Um. Exactly. Okay. So I know we've preached this with Coral a bazillion times. Stable water parameters. Pick numbers, keep it stable. Same goes with lighting, right? You need stable parameters for corals to be happy, and you also want stable lighting. You don't want to keep buggering and changing the spectrum constantly, because every time you change it, they're going to take a while to readapt to it and settle in. So you're just stunting your growth over and over and over and over again by constantly messing with it.
right.
So find a happy par range, get something visually you like, leave it alone. Best way to do it.
Pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and if you had all white light, technically you're giving them what they need because it's
Yeah.
full spectrum. So if you just use white only, I mean, it potentially could, stay alive. But your coloration's not going to be as good, and they're probably not going to grow as fast
Yeah.
because you're not putting the peaks there.
Tank
Um,
of brown corals.
yeah.
But they'll grow.
So
They'll be there.
across the board, when you're setting your sliders, you put your blues, your cool colors up, even including UV, all the way up to 100%. You slide in the white till you like it,
Hmm.
and then adjust your red and your greens till it looks great to you. Get something that has some color on it to look at. Would that be a
Mm-hmm.
piece, a piece of paper or something that if you didn't have coral is what I'm getting at.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, just slide your red and your greens till you like it, and call it a day. I don't know that there's any LED that's gonna like if you took the red LED and put it at 100%, the whole thing would look red.
No,
You'd have to turn down everything else,
I think so too. And
right?
unless they had like completely oversaturated red, but none of the
Which
main brands
shouldn't
do
be a
anything
light
like
that you're
that. So
using anyway. Yeah,
no.
because it's just the wrong spread of LEDs.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean it's a pretty simple approach. That's gonna give you naturally will give you that spectrum where it's like peaks in the cool colors, and it'll give you the broadest blue spectrum because you're maximizing whatever LEDs you have in that fixture. You're maximizing their output because you're putting it at 100%. So you can't
Mm-hmm.
get a broader blue spectrum from those same LEDs. And then
Now, on that note,
yeah,
there was a question about like the broadness, I guess, of blue LEDs. Now, what
hmm
some manufacturers will do is they'll put in a few different spectrums of blue in the same fixture to kind of broaden it. And every LED isn't perfect, right? Each one has a bit of a variation, so that
sure,
naturally gives you a little bit of a spread. So, food for
yeah,
thought.
um, yeah. I've used them with all different colors. What I've noticed more is like the way the colors render. The way that the corals look under those different blues is to me that's just more. I don't have any proof to tell you that it grows or photosynthesizes more, but I'm sure it it does. It's just
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've noticed when you have those different colors of blues, you can definitely get some better fluorescence and colors out of them, or
Nope,
it looks different anyway. Yeah.
exactly. So, at the end of the day, pick it, set it, forget it. Do it looks good to you.
Yeah.
Um, par meters. Did you par test your tanks back in the day, or did you just
No,
guesstimate and hope for the best?
no, I didn't. Not until Senai came to the scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Senai was the only time. And honestly, I have par tested and tuned a light with the Senai twice,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably in that same time frame I probably set up and built at
Many
least between
tanks.
sometime between 5 and 10 tanks. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but it's important, especially now that LEDs are getting higher output, you're getting more over your tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they could afford, I think it's about acclimating. So I think corals can handle, a little bit higher par, a little bit more than what we give them. It's just about acclimating to them because the change burns them. It's just,
Yep.
and so if you slowly ramp it up, I think you could get, a little bit more par over them. And I think they would survive in a little bit less par environment.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not going to grow as fast, and they're not going to, be as healthy and as vibrant or vivacious. It's just,
So okay.
yeah,
So on that note, if you don't have a par meter, just go slower on raising your lights up, right? Because too much light can kill coral fast. Not enough light, it's a slow decline of losing
yeah.
color.
Before, I'd always say 10% every 2 weeks over the course of 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that would give you like, yeah, 90, no, so two a month. Yeah. So, uh,
Just
if
couple
you
every
do
week,
that,
just couple
yeah,
percent. Just
right,
slowly
exactly.
ease it up.
And so if you did that over the course of the time, depending on where you started at, say you start at 20%, um, you're going to give yourself slowly more and more par, and it's plenty of time in between with that 2 week period for those corals to adjust, and you're not going to see some crazy stress from it all, or bleach
Mm-hmm.
corals for that matter.
Yep. Okay. Question in the comments from Pet Mall Life. Do you always use acclimation mode when adding corals to your tank? Nope. It's been ages since I've used it.
When
It
adding
depends.
corals, like new corals to
Yeah.
an existing, oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, just when I
It
put the,
if I
yeah,
was yeah, if I got brand new radions or something on a tank and I was using something else before and had no idea what the spectrum was, I would use acclimation mode maybe over like a month or so to like ease the lights up to a more intense light.
yep,
Now, if I buy new coral, it partially depends where it came from. If it's coming from a buddy's tank who's already giving it tons of par, I know it's probably not an issue. If it's an unknown source, then maybe I'll put it on my sand bed for like a week or lower on the rocks, then just move it up a bit.
yeah.
So it kind of depends, but you got to gauge where it's coming from and if
If
it's used to
you
high par or not.
Yeah, if you try to use acclimation mode every time you put a coral in the tank, you're stressing your coral out that's already there. You can't be
Mm-hmm.
doing that.
Yep.
So the only time I ever use it is when I'm adding like building a new tank, basically. But if I'm going from scratch and not transferring any corals, then I'll just set it right from the start and go,
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm transferring corals with new lights, that's when I'll use it. So
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, if I went from Gen 4s to Gen 5s, I'd use it. If I went from, AIs to Radions, I'd use it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Kessel to T5, well, the other way around, T5s to Kessels, I would definitely use it.
Yep. Okay, on that, someone's asking about the Hydra 64s. I've never used them. Have you?
Yes,
How do you like them? They're asking about 3 on a 210-gallon tank. Never used them. Got
3 on
nothing.
a 210. So 210, that's 6 foot, 6 foot or 8 foot, 6 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little. He'll get the spread for like softies and LPS, but you're not gonna
Mm-hmm.
get the par for SPS. And then when the SPS get big,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna shadow each other and stuff, you could add T5s to it, and you'd fill in the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll get the spread if he mounts them, but you're definitely not gonna get the par that you need if if you want SPS coral. Up top, maybe. So coral
Yeah.
placement has a lot to do with that. But
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna definitely see zones of par, high and low and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Petamal Life, that makes sense. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And thank you for $4 super chat.
Rock and roll, brother.
All right, all right. And fellow reefer, thank you as well for the super chat from earlier.
Rock and roll.
Um, so so we were just kind of talking about how many for that tank. Now that's a question I get constantly. How
All
many
the time.
fixtures for X number of tank? And you're really good at apparently knowing the size of a tank by the gallons. That I'm completely lost. I don't know if I've ever bought a standard tank.
Yeah,
So
so
I'm like,
that's
what does that mean? What are the dimensions?
that's just years and years of you know working the aquarium industry. I think
Hmm.
so. If we count, so I was in the saltwater industry come 2006. I was working with aquariums like 2003. So whatever,
Hmm.
do the math, long time. So that's just where that comes from, and you just deal with tanks and fish tanks, so you memorize that.
Yeah, that's fair.
The hard part is, oh, when it comes, my dog's growling. When it comes to lighting, you got to know that like the spread of the lights, and so it's nice because I don't know where if there's some standardization to it or what or why they do it, but
Hmm.
a 24-inch spread is kind of like what they shoot for. They probably build the light to fit
Hmm.
that spread. So when I'm recommending LEDs or trying to come up with a good configuration for somebody, it's always kind of based on this 24-inch spread
Hmm.
or 15. For whatever reason, I just if when I'm calculating like a smaller like a prime like a single or an XR15, I'm using like a 15-inch square.
Yeah.
And then when I go up to the Radions, the Hydras, or even a Kessler A360X, or just any of the 360 series, um,
Hmm.
it's always a 24-inch spread. So I map that out, and then I
Hmm.
know that if I've got one every 24 inches, um, and the tank isn't more than 30 inches front to back,
Yeah.
then I've got light for coral. It will keep them alive.
Hmm.
Beyond that, you've got to add at least one or two more in there if you want to keep SPS past 2 years, because
Yep.
once you're 2 years into an SPS tank or even a year and a half, like you've just got these trees, man, and they're up top and they're shading everybody. And I mean, you see it all the time. The
Hmm.
inside the SPS is dead. The outside is, bushy and fun. You think your tank looks great. But when you really
Hmm.
look at it, it's like these corals are slowly dying from the inside out because they don't have
You're like
enough
the
light.
tips look good.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think I definitely think that's a light issue. And flow, I think flow is probably, it's
Hmm.
hard to get flow into those things. So that's why you're seeing this talk and, guys like Worldwide Corals guys. And I think, Ryan and them touched on it when they did that hybrid tank and talking about flow. If you think you've got enough flow, double it, triple it. Um, and that's specifically around those SPS tanks because there's just so many
Hmm.
important functions that flow plays in a coral, taking nutrients away, feeding it, just all kinds of stuff. And so, it's important when you have all the sticks in there, it's blocking flow. Like it doesn't get the
Hmm.
same flow as it does as when
It's a
it's just
wall.
a peace sign when it's just little. So
Hmm.
it's dynamic is what I'm getting at. And so plan for the future when you're choosing your light stick. Yes, you can plant SPS corals on your tank now. They will grow.
Hmm. It's
But
true.
I'm telling you to buy 6 lights because when they're this big, like they're going to start slowly dying off. And do you want to be in that position? Sure, add the light at the time is fine, but now you're going through another acclimation and probably, stunting them or having to reconfigure.
Well, one thing that I do like about the smaller, more module ones is you can start off with less. Then as your tank grows in, you could always add another one down the road. You
Oh,
don't have
sure, yeah, like
You're
the
not replacing
XR15.
fixtures. Yeah, you can just
Yeah,
add one more, right? Now you got a bunch more light. without
Yeah.
changing everything, just adding one in.
No, totally. I think you're awesome, and it's much more upgradable too in that sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's be honest, we all upgrade eventually. I mean, the yeah, it's just I think it's a great idea because you just like you said, you add more,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot easier to fill in those gaps. Especially if you graduate, let's just say, you buy zoanthids and mushrooms, then you're buying like Euphilia and some acans, and then you're into fuzzy sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is a natural evolution of a reefer, and if you go with something like the XR15 or something, it's very easy to accommodate that evolution, because you
Yep.
just like you said, you just add more. Or
Yep.
buy T5s and
Yep.
put it next to them, or
There you go.
add more T5 bulbs.
That's the cheapest option, really. Just slap into like a single or two
Okay, so
T5
I was
bulbs,
thinking this the other day, and like I was just probably too
maybe.
lazy to do the math, but I don't I don't like to say it's cheaper. I mean, yeah, LEDs are expensive technology, but like let's
Lifetime
say
cost.
yeah, 5 year plan, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I have a hard time because what they're $20 a pop, right? The bulbs,
Yeah.
depending.
Well, more for me, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the 48-inch ones is what I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
at. Yeah, so it's $22 or something like that for an ATI. Um, so what? You got six of those, $120 a year. I mean, that pays for an LED fixture right there, you know. And then
Mm-hmm.
you've got your fixture on top of that. So
Yep.
I think it's equal. And then you've got, nobody considers this, but you're not. They're efficient compared to a T12, and they're efficient compared to a metal halide.
54 watts times X number of
Eight
bulbs and
bulb,
electricity.
54.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you're at 440 watts.
So lifetime of bulbs and maybe a ballast upgrade, like you're probably pretty darn close what you'd spend on an LED,
Yep.
but less power consumption. I don't know. Stuff to consider.
Yeah.
But okay, so if personally, if I had a canopy, I'd probably just do stuff like that. But open top
Like what?
tank,
Like what?
slapping random T5s and all this random stuff up there because you don't see it.
Oh,
It's hidden, right?
yeah, it wouldn't bother you to like. Yeah,
But
I got you.
not a chance I'll do that on like an open top peninsula tank or I just got to keep it sleek and good. In my living
Yeah,
room, it's like my living room art. Just got to look good inside and
I
out.
don't know. Okay, so I built. That's an interesting one because I've been battling with that lately on this new tank. I've got a nice like sort of uh, there's a nice wall like a textured wall where the
Mm-hmm.
tank's gonna go. It's kind of like some it's like slate. It's like slate, like a slate. It looks like a brick wall, but it's slate,
Yep.
and so it's nice. And I was thinking to myself that like, man, I kind of feel like I should put a canopy on this tank.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, it's a lagoon tank. So like, if I put a canopy in a lagoon, like I either have this gap, which is kind of weird, above the tank, or it's like, it's like a viewfinder, like this little thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so but classically, like I like a canopy. I think that's nice. Like I think it blends into
If you
your
had one
house.
really high, and then you get like some super directional LEDs and just fire them straight down from a distance, so you don't really see lights above
Oh,
it,
yeah, but see, then
maybe.
there's the gap above the tank, which
Yeah, I know.
I'd want to fill in with a mangrove. I want a mangrove too. So.
Mangrove would be cool. You have a lagoon. It's a perfect excuse to do a mangrove.
Yeah, no, and I've got some interesting ideas of how I can get its roots in the sand without having like basically put a pot in the tank,
Mm-hmm.
and then surrounded by rock. Like my rock structure will be built for the mangrove itself to support it and everything,
Yep.
and I can still have my coral and do my stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
mangrove. Now,
Yeah.
the thing that's going to be funny about my tank is this split level lighting, or how I'm going to do this lighting. So still battling that out, man. I don't know the right way to do it, but I'm probably going to
Mm-hmm.
end up with lights really high up, and people are just the way it's going to be.
But you're shallow, so you can get away with that because you don't
Yeah,
need all that power
that's
to be
what I'm
closer,
getting at.
right?
Is I think I'll be okay, but who knows? Maybe like I'll end up with Kessel on the left and Prime on the right. I don't know.
There you
Might
go.
be something. Yeah, might be
Dan-
something funky.
Dano's Reef was saying, how about a floating canopy?
Yeah,
Just
those
build a little bit
are.
hire.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they look nice. There was a build recently of a fellow on Aspiros TV that did this really cool. Like, he essentially built the tank I was picturing originally, where I wanted multiple displays and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I still want that. I've just the space that I have for this thing is next to a fireplace, and I don't want to get it that close. If I was to do something that's like this is the most I could do is 48 inches, and then I've got another 3 feet or so, 4 feet to the
Mm-hmm.
the fireplace. And if I was to do a 48-inch tank, then try to put like an ATO reservoir or like water station or anything next, like now I'm right up on the fire, And it's kind
Yeah.
of like this think of a like old wood burning stove.
Hmm.
You know, it's like an external fireplace. It's just kind of in the
Yeah.
room with like a pipe that
Okay.
kind of goes straight up. Yeah.
Nice.
So I wanted to stay away from that. And
That's
this
fair.
guy built this cool like three different displays. It was split level where the middle
Hmm.
tank was bigger and then the two tanks were shallow. And he has this floating canopy, which is really cool. And I think that's why I got
Mm.
to talking about him. Yeah, we've seen it. He
Yeah.
just finished it, and he was asking about lighting. I think that's where we started talking, and then we started PMing.
Hmm.
Um, and when he had it all said and done, man, it looked slick. Like you couldn't see any lights, but then again, at the same time, he had this big gap in between the tank and his canopy because he had to, accommodate.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I like it, but there was a ton of light bleed. I mean, he
Oh.
had light coming out of everywhere.
Hmm. That did look surprisingly good though for three different tanks put together.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought it looked cool.
Yeah, it was really neat. I think Kyle, like Adaptive Reef, Kyle did one like that too, where he
Hmm.
did like I think it was one tank. It was just an interesting shape.
Yeah, he had it. The middle one came out, and the other ones are
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was
it
kind of
was
neat.
like crazy big too. It was like 14, 15. It was some crazy long tank.
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
someday, someday, dream tanks.
Yep.
What would be? Let's talk about that. What's your dream tank? Don't know yet. Do you have it now?
This is for now.
Yeah,
This
good.
is my dream tank for my current house. 'Cause I'm just pimping this one out as much as I can and just making it
I
amazing
think
because it's my last one for ages.
I think an
So
outdoor like coral farm would be my dream tank,
that
or like a
the farm dream tank,
yeah, a coral pond, something like that would be cool.
that would be wicked. If I
Yeah, I
live
mean,
some,
I like the bright colors. Don't get me wrong; it's
Mhm.
very cool to see, a confetti tank. But at the same time, I like to grow coral, man, and I think it's really cool
Mhm.
to grow. Like I like to garden. Like I get satisfaction in growing things. I love it. I have plants in my office. Like I have plants. I have like 15 or 16 plants throughout my
Yeah,
house. And
I,
then probably 100 different ones outside. So
yeah. Um, okay, so on this, you'd like this. I no idea where the video is now. I was down like a YouTube rabbit hole one night and I found this one video, and it was like this like multi-million-dollar place on the beach, like beautiful place, and they had this like walkway of like floating steps to their house, and it was like a big reef around their house. Like there wasn't really I don't think it was fake coral, or there wasn't much coral, but it was all fish, and I think they fed it from the ocean or something like that. It was amazing. I'm just like, if that was full of actual coral as well, like, oh, it'd be so
that's
cool.
the thing. I think when you get to these tanks, it's just so hard to keep them stable enough for
But
coral.
if you live on the beach and you just have a little pump transferring water from the ocean constantly, I mean,
I think
you
with
don't have to
that,
dose. You got nothing. You got sunlight.
yeah, I think with
Easy.
that is, I still think there's challenges. I
For
don't
sure.
know. I haven't tried it. I still think there's some gnarly challenges that don't make
Mm.
it as easy as we would like to think it is. Because
Mm.
I've always thought of like, well, okay, so tides they go in and out, right? Like
Mm.
I could do a water change with the tide, like
Yeah.
technically, right?
Yeah.
It comes in, it fills it. I pump the water out, then it comes in again and fills it. Like
Mm.
there's a concept there. It's like
Yep.
your natural water change, and you're constantly getting ocean water. Um, but you've got disease and that kind of stuff coming in from the fish. You'd have to sterilize it. Um,
Maybe. Maybe not.
maybe not. I guess you're right. I don't know.
If I ever become a millionaire and live on the beach, we will put
Yeah.
this to the test.
Well, I think about like places like Scripps and Monterey Bay
Mm.
Aquarium and stuff. Like I know they get, they use ocean water and like
Mm.
they sterilize the crap out of that. I'm pretty sure anyway,
Well,
Like I've always been told that it's like that water is just annihilated, so there's nothing in it but the elements itself.
some of the public aquariums that I have done like behind the scenes tours with,
Hmm.
they will sterilize their own water. Like they'll take water out for water change, pump into a massive tank, pump it full of ozone, and then reuse that water once it's all kind of cleaned and sterilized. So they literally do 80% of it's recycled water back into it after their
I wonder
water
what they're
change
doing
itself.
for like the nutrients, like the organics.
A lot of them just I see them see like a sand filter and they just
I was gonna
ozone
say a
it.
sand
So
bed filter, yeah. So like
yeah,
bacteria,
like
the
yeah, then like
magic of bacteria.
you betcha,
Yeah, you
it
betcha.
rules the world, man. It rules the world.
Yeah.
Savage Reefer, what's your thoughts on Orphatec? I've never actually used Orphatec personally.
Orfec?
Orphac, yeah, I always say it wrong every time.
Okay. I've never used them, man. They in the very beginning, like it was very disco effect. I think it's a lot better now.
Hmm.
Um, I have not seen one on a fish tank in quite a few years. It's been 3 or 4 years, so. I haven't used one, but some people love them. The panel LEDs. There's something to say about that. Let's just talk about that
Mm-hmm.
because I have an opinion there.
Okay.
Um, oh, like you got the Coral Care light right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I saw one today or yesterday. Reef Builders published like some new Italian one that was real slick looking, like a real thin.
Oh,
It's very
that's
similar to
the
Coral Care.
ATI. ATI is making an LED
Okay,
light.
ATI's
Super
no.
thin.
This was a different one. It's not ATI. This was
Bitch, it is.
no. It was an Italian company, GCI or something like that. He
Okay.
just published an article. At any rate, it's not available in the U.S. It's just one of
Mm-hmm.
the hey, this is coming sometime in the future, maybe. Um, but panel LEDs, man, I think there's something there. You see it like horticulture situations, and we now understand spread is huge.
Yep.
So yeah, it makes a lot of sense that a bunch of small wattage LEDs smashed, on a big panel will give you a nice even spread, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to a central, so really tight cluster of high output
Mm-hmm.
LEDs because the LEDs put out like it's like sort of like a unidirectional light, and then they bend it out,
Yep.
Um, and so, yeah, makes sense. I mean, I've seen them; they look nice, but it's the whole form factor, like the contemporary thing. Like I like the way a pendant looks,
Mm-hmm.
And at this point now, you're putting in a whole like if you're running say a 6 foot long tank, now you've got a flat panel essentially all the way across the top,
Mm-hmm.
which if it's thin enough can look awesome. Like think
Yep.
like the Razor, the Max Effect Razor,
Yep.
can look nice. But I don't know. I think there's something there. I think we're going to see more and more panel lights come, for sure.
Probably. Well,
There's
okay.
some people that have a hard opinion about it, like, no, the panel light is the only LED you should ever buy. So
Alright. So GNC Blu-ray Pro, that's the one you're
there you
referring
go.
to.
Yeah, yeah.
But sorry. So ATI is coming with one as well.
I
There's a
know.
bunch of them. We got the
What's the
Coral
name of it?
Care. Um,
It's got a name.
Stratton. ATI Stratton LED.
Stratton. Okay.
Yep.
Stratus.
Yep. So there's definitely a lot coming out, but
Yes.
I'm still on the fence because, I mean, I like sleek. And it depends where it is. If it's in my garage or a basement or an office, I'm not as worried. But if it's in the middle of my living room, I want it as sleek as
Yeah,
possible.
I think. Yeah,
So
I
it
don't know. It's
depends.
hard. I think as we see more of these things, the side by side tests are going to be super cool. For me, I think what would make it attractive is if I can get equal par with equal spread for less watts.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what would make it attractive to me.
Yep.
But if that's not the case, then I don't know. It might be more like let's just say it's a better use of the LED's power. If it
Mm-hmm.
could do something like that, it would be good. And when this all started, I originally was like on the that's why Kessel excited me so much was because of the lens. I was like, oh man, the first people to put like a concave lens or a convex lens on these things,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, convex I think, uh, they're gonna be the winner. Like that's what we need to do. We gotta because that'll blend all the light together. And you can angle the lens to give you a perfect shape of light, and that could control the spread that you've got. And yeah, now like after seeing some of the stuff that Ryan and Randy put out with the PAR grids, how it acts, with reflection,
Mm-hmm.
how efficient the new radiant, the G5s are with spread. Like I think it can be
Mm-hmm.
done. I don't know where I'm at with that. Like I don't know. Like it just can be very interesting to see how a panel, performs right next to like a pendant or cluster
Yeah.
plug.
No,
Maybe
exactly.
it's the future, maybe it's not. I don't know. But
We'll
a
see.
lot of smart companies are going that direction. I mean, how long has that Philips light been in
That would,
development? 5 years.
yeah. Well,
It's
they
been
had
a
the
long time.
Gen 1. Yeah, it's probably a good 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's
And
getting sleeker, well,
a
relatively to
company
the
like
Gen 1, because the Gen
yeah, a
1's like
company like
noticeably
Philips, I
more.
like to think that they're putting some leading brains behind the development of that light, and so being some of the best LEDs for aquariums are clusters, I imagine they looked at that and there's a reason they chose a panel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
I don't know.
It's true.
Interesting to see.
On the side slate disclaimer note with Philips, because I did a video on one a week or two ago,
Hmm.
but I realized that after I did the video that my blue channel isn't operating at 100%. So I think they're gonna send me like something called bug the programming on the one that I have. So I'm not seeing it to its full potential yet. So I'm gonna revisit that one once I actually get whatever part I got to replace to fix it or get it rolling.
Exciting.
Yeah, I know.
That's cool.
Part of beta testing.
I mean, there's been okay. So we're talking about new LEDs. Like, gosh, let's
Mm-hmm.
think about it's like the year of lighting. It seems.
Mm-hmm.
Started with the Hydra revamps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then you had the Radeon, the G5s.
Yep.
We've got, dude, the Neptune rumor. Neptune is supposedly developing a light.
I wonder. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
wasn't there some like patent leak or something?
yeah, exactly. Reefs.com, I'm pretty sure. Wrote about
Sounds.
it. Yeah, it was a patent leak.
Yeah.
And then he had a talk with
It it
Terrence.
would. It was strategically around the same time as the G5s released. I think
That's
that's
right.
marketing. I think that's
Yeah,
a marketing play.
yeah, yeah. Maybe it is. I don't know, but there's the rumors
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's another one.
Yeah. Well, I know Terrence runs the coral cares on his tank,
Yeah.
the Gen ones.
Oh,
So
that's the one I'm thinking of. It
yeah.
was a coral care. So
Yeah.
the Philips one's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just exciting stuff.
Tons.
And it's cool, man. I just think it's awesome to be sort of like the front of this and watch the
Mm-hmm.
technology evolve and like always be a part of and using and having your hands on like some of the coolest like latest stuff. And then to see it like come full circle with science, like that's just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
With like marine biologists and studying the reefs and restoring the reefs. Like, I mean, how often does it happen where it's like, the scientists will discover something in the ocean about fragmenting coral or about like, having a symbiosis between corals and an urchin or something. Um, and when it's like we kind of like we knew that like we've been doing this our tank for years, like, and the application's there, and so it's neat to be a part of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool.
Yep. Pet Maloo, can you explain the relationship between Ecotech and AI? I think Ecotech owns AI, or they're a sister company or a parent company, something like that.
Yeah, so AI was originally separate,
Yep.
and then they joined forces.
Yeah. There you go. So
So there's
partnered,
that.
sister,
But I think
owned, something.
C2 Development, I think is the name of it. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's still called that, but um, I think they still like operate. You know, I don't want to say independently, but they have like separate development and things like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that they bounce ideas off each other,
Yeah.
but I think they like not much was changed in the way that the companies operate. I think
Mm-hmm.
I've just I don't know if I've been told or if I've been heard or what, but there's something there that makes me want to think that they when that force happened, they kept the genuine or the best parts of both, or the best
Makes
parts
sense.
of yeah, C2.
Yeah. Greg says merger. There you go.
Merger, yeah, yeah.
I'll go with it.
I don't know, man. I work
Who
with fish
knows?
tanks for a living.
Yeah. I don't know. I've used products from both and I've been happy and they both been
Yeah,
awesome. So
yeah, no, they are.
either way is good.
I think they're, I think they're both great companies, and they
Mm-hmm.
have been. I mean, gosh, I think that like those old Soul Blues, I think it was called, like those original AI fixtures, like
They're just like diehard fans of those still. Like,
dude, like I
there's
think
people that won't give them
those
up.
lights, like Radions, were okay. They're awesome, but I think
Mm-hmm.
those Souls were like what put LED on the map. Like those fixtures were like some of the most popular and successful, and it might be because of the color.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but success under those lights was very very common back in the beginning of LED days, and they're affordable. I think that
Yeah,
might have a little bit to do with it.
definitely
Um,
helps.
so yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I think we've covered it pretty good, and you did never got your coffee, so make sure your stove isn't melting down.
Nikes.
So, I think it's a good one. Quick
Mm.
question. Devin ask him what's happening with Ryan's huge home tank. I think that was kind of pending
Oh,
COVID and movers. I don't know if it's
no,
moved.
man. So there's some
Oh,
some stuff. Yeah.
do
So I
tell.
think I just saw a post. So
Mm-hmm.
our Ryan Thompson sent Ryan Batchelor a hat. He made him a BRS 360 hat.
Yeah.
So just before I got in here, Ryan posted that hat saying thanks, Ryan. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the tank's going in his house tomorrow.
Ooh, nice.
I think.
Nice.
I'd have to look at the post, but he said like, pretty sure he said it's coming home tomorrow. So yeah,
Nice.
it's God, I can't find it. I'm gonna have to look, but it's happening, man. It's happening soon. There was some delays with it. I mean, it's a crazy time right now, man. Jeez, it's
Mm-hmm.
just who'd
It
have
is.
thought, man, going into 2020, like we'd just be going through hell.
You're crazy. Good thing we
It
have
is,
fish
but
tanks to keep us sane.
yeah, and gosh, thanks for being a good buddy, Devin. I don't think I could to get through this time and stay sane and stay happy without, gosh, the entire reefing community and staying entrenched in some of this stuff that I do. So
Nope.
thank you
It's
for
true.
all you content creators and keeping us happy and entertained.
Likewise. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it today. I'm gonna let Robert go acquire his stuff so his stove doesn't melt and all his water evaporate. Uh,
Yeah.
hopefully you guys enjoyed today. As always, if you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up button. If you're new, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on next week's stream.
All right. Bye,
Okay.
guys.